This morning's scripture reading will be Luke 21, verse 1 through 9. And he looked up, and he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins. And he said, "Truly I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all of them. For they all out of their surplus put into the offering, but she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on." And while some were talking about the temple, that it was adorned with beautiful stones and votive gifts, he said, "As for these things which you are looking at, the days will come in which there will not be left one stone upon another, which will not be torn down." They questioned him, saying, "Teacher, when, therefore, will these things happen? And what will be the sign when these things are about to take place?" And he said, "See to it that you are not misled, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and 'the time is near.' Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and disturbances, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end does not follow immediately."
All right, good morning. Good morning, excuse me. It's good to see everybody today. You're not confused. That is what we read last week. I asked David to read a little bit more of it today. We will be in Luke 21, and going to try to wrap up a few thoughts that I left off last week, but then lead us into some more and keep on journeying through Luke. It's been a good day already. It's been a good morning to be here. I'm thankful for everybody who is here. It's been a great week here at Old Union with our church family. It's been a couple weekends of weddings, and so thankful for Brittany and Garrett Widener, who were married last Saturday, and then yesterday here at the church building, Dana Smith and Oakley Honeycutt were married, and so you might still see their names out on the sign out front even. And so just thankful for good, happy things like that. And that was a great day yesterday, and got to have a good teen devotional last night. A few gathered out at our house and had a great time. The weather was wonderful. I got to enjoy a campfire together, and it was just good. And so it's neat to transition from Evangeline singing a song that she wrote to Brother Averett coming up here and leading us in song. And then somewhere in between, I think Ethan's here somewhere. I hope Ethan's here. Yeah, there he is. Ethan's going to lead the rest of our songs for us. And so thankful for people who want to participate in worship. And just thankful for this congregation. And so pray with me. We'll dig into something, and just excited to be here with you today. Father, be with us. Be present in here today. And I know you're powerful to do that, but I also believe that in some mysterious way we're able to keep you out. And we get so distracted, we get so caught up, we get just drawn to what we want and what we're comfortable with. And then we have these hearts that aren't penetrated by your goodness. And so I pray for you to penetrate our hearts today. I pray to be softened, to have eyes and ears that are open. Father, you know my heart, and you know that I struggle with how to word things and how to make good application. And so I pray that you take that burden from me, and I pray that open hearts in this room are able to rightly apply these beautiful scriptures to their life, and that we as a people can be united and serve you and seek you and honor you together. And so thank you for an old union. And Father, may we be that people who are united in the bond that is the oldest, Father, the bond that humans have with you. And it's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen. Amen. So Luke 21. I don't typically start this way like I'm about to, but I thought this might make some sense. And so try to think with me about something that you've experienced that you thought was really, really good, but then maybe later you discover that there's more, and that more is even better. I know that probably didn't help you a lot, but maybe you've got something in mind that you've once experienced and you thought, man, I like that. That's good. But then over time you realize that's good, but there's something that's really better. There's something that is more fulfilling, perhaps. And again, I don't typically start like this, but the first thing that came to my mind was Oreo cookies. Isn't that weird? And so I remember regular Oreo cookies, and I remember that it was such a treat for me to dip those in milk or just shove them down in milk, and spoon cookie crumbles out and eat it. And I didn't get to do that very often. But man, that was a treat. And that was good, but then double stuffed Oreos came out. You know what I mean? And I used to take the Oreo cookie and take them all apart and discard the cookie part and just build the cream up. Well, when they made the double stuffed ones, I mean, no going back, So Oreo cookies good, double stuffed, bring it on. This one involves somebody here. So when I was younger and started cutting grass at our house, we had the old lawn tractor, And my dad kept that lawn tractor running for years, and even without a hood, Dad, you remember that? And I would run that thing and cut the grass. And then our neighbors, the Brownings, got a zero turn. And I remember thinking, that's silly, that zero turn mower. I like my lawn tractor, And then you ride the zero turn, and you realize, no going back. You know what? Lawn tractor is great for cutting grass. Sometimes you need those in your yard. But man, that zero turn is the way to go. Let me put a little different spin on it. And again, don't typically start this way, but I think it good for where we're going today. And so I've been coaching the girls' soccer team. John Austin and Mary Kate have been helping me. Amelia's U10 rec soccer team. And I've told some of you about this, or some of you know, last season we went undefeated. And we ended up winning the tournament. And really easy to get the big head thinking, man, we got something going on, Well, this season we've won one game. And it's not looking good for what we got left, to be honest with you. And so I've been I was riding home yesterday, and I was talking to Kelly some, and I'm just thinking, man, I just want the girls to experience a win. You want them to. And they're doing great, but I'm learning how to coach through defeat, and I'm learning how to. I don't like confession. I don't like to lose. And so I'm learning how to coach through and how to deal with defeat. And I'm driving home, and I got to thinking, well, Stephen, last season was really good, and in fact, I might have called it like the best. It was good. But then I think about, Which season has given me the most opportunity to grow? Which one is giving me the better opportunity to lead kids even, and to learn about perseverance and endurance? And I know that's really silly. That really is kind of silly. Cookies are silly, the grass, whatever. But it's an example of how sometimes we think things are really good, and we might really like those things. But then we realize that there's something better, There's something more fulfilling. So this morning, I think that kind of relates to what Jesus is doing in Luke 21. And I think it kind of relates to how he's communicating with the church folks of his time, if you will. And what I mean by the church folks, the religious Jews in the city of Jerusalem that were centered around this temple faith, okay? Temple practice, temple faith. And so he's showing up and he's telling them, hey, look, it's not that this is a bad thing, but there's something better. And he wants them to know that there's something better. And he's passionate about them knowing that there's something better. And sometimes he even really makes them mad because he's he's really passionate about there being something better. And so this is what we see here. And I'll try to explain that a little better as we go along, and then I'll try to tie back into it and wrap us up and everything. But that relates to today. It's possible for us to think that church and what we have today is really good, or maybe what we've had at some point is really good. But what if there's more? And what if the more is really better? Really better. And what if it's really not so much about changes to how we do things in a building? You know, we've experienced a lot of change. And so what if I'm not really even talking about changes to how we do things in a building, but instead I'm talking about changes for how the church lives for Jesus, how we live for Jesus? I am discovering that it is really hard to overcome ways that I have thought for a long time, okay? And I would suggest that we would all be blessed as well to realize that it's really difficult for us to overcome ways that we've thought for a long time. But sometimes it's really good to consider a need to challenge how we've thought. Yesterday at the wedding, for instance, I actually heard this twice this week, but I'll tell this one. Yesterday at the wedding, this happens all the time. A wonderful woman with an innocent heart and an honest desire to be encouraging. She comes and she says something that I hear all the time. She says, "Your church is so beautiful." And you guys know me. My initial thought was, how do you know? Because I have really tried to train myself to not think building when I hear church, okay? But she was thinking building, and I understand what she's saying. That's not a place for me to, teach anything. So I agree, and I say, yes, it is, and then we talk about the history of the building, which I have almost memorized, and I love and cherish, and so that's wonderful. But again, just an example how it's really hard for us to overcome ways that we've thought for a long time. And so again, when we're talking about changes and things being better, I'm not even necessarily talking about differences in what we do here in this building. But I am suggesting that there is a way to be the people of God that is more and that is better than just what we do when we're here. And you've heard me say that for years. But when Jesus is talking about it, and when we're studying Luke, that's what we're going to talk about, okay? And so let me backtrack just a touch. Again, this is stuff that I kind of left out last week, and one of the same slides, same reading. Hopefully you were here last week. If you weren't, we talked about the widow's mite, or the widow's gift, a very familiar story for most of us who have been anywhere around church in America or in the South, growing up. You can read about that in Luke 21. I might read it again real quick. David read it. But let me build to that real quick, and then we'll work through it. And so Jesus has praised a poor widow. He's honored a poor widow, and he's praised a poor widow more than the rich. I want to use the word, it just says the rich in verse 21. He's giving praise to a poor widow above the rich who are putting into the temple treasury. Okay, and he does that because the rich are giving out of their surplus. It's a really important word for us to focus on there. I'm going to kind of end with that, I think. The rich are giving out of their surplus, but the widow has given all that she has. Okay, and I tried to explain last week that this is not really a teaching to increase contribution. It's probably been used for that in the past. I don't think that's really the case, but it's one that emphasizes a corrupt system that was robbing widows. And that's what the context reveals. The temple system had grown corrupt. It was robbing widows. It was taking advantage of their hope and people who were of lower class like them. Okay, and the beauty of this story is that though the widows and others like them have been classified as inferior, though they had been manipulated by self-seeking scribes, I'm just revealing the context again, Jesus elevates them. Jesus honors them. And this is so often what Jesus does. He flips the script. Jesus challenges all of us to trust and to hope like this poor widow. And that's awesome. Okay? I wanted to do this, and I didn't last week, so I didn't want to skip it. This week Wednesday was Secretary's Day, which I don't think that's the right way to refer to it anymore. Administrative Assistant Day, correct? Something. No disrespect by that at all. Many of you know that last year this church lost its secretary, its administrator, and since then, someone has stepped into that role that God has sent to us, and for that I'm so thankful. And so I was really trying to think about widows a lot last week, and it timed out so well with Secretary's Day. And I recalled a passage in 1 Timothy 5. You want to turn there with me real quick? It's not on the screen. So 1 Timothy 5, Paul is giving some instruction to Timothy about how widows are to be honored. Okay, this all ties together. And in 1 Timothy chapter 5, around verse 10, he reveals the importance or the significance or the value of faithful widows to the church. And this is how he describes them. This is verse 10. He describes them as people, as women who are devoted to every good work. That's what the text says. You see that? And he says these are those widows who take good care of their children, and they show hospitality to strangers, and they wash the feet of the saints, and they assist those who are in distress. And I don't remember when I did this, but at some point studying this in my Bible, I wrote the initials PP by that. Isn't that cool? And again, I love God's timing, you know. So last week we were talking about how it is not okay for us to get distracted and to neglect people who are in need. And what I wanted to emphasize is that so often people who suffer in hope, people who live in need with wants and desires to be fulfilled, but then trust in God, and in that trust they live faithfully and they serve their children and they wash the disciples' feet, and it's beautiful. And so I guess is what I'm telling you, and again I wanted to emphasize it last week, that if we're not living church the way that is more, if we're doing church a way that is less, we might miss incredible opportunities to support the life of gracious widows like we read about in this text. And that is exactly what's going on in Luke 21. Jesus is saying, you've become so distracted with your building and your beautiful walls and your votive gifts that you're neglecting these beautiful pillars of grace and service available to us through widows and others like them. I hope that makes some sense. And so back in Luke 21, the text is not meant to increase our contribution. It's meant to challenge our contribution. It's meant to challenge us by not just giving out of our surplus. Okay, we can't do church out of our surplus. We can't do church out of our extra. Do you see what the text is doing here? This is huge to me. I was trying to communicate this to Kelly, and I said, please pray for me, because I'm not going to be able to do this. I think this is something that changes everything, is what I'm saying. Not doing church out of your extra, not doing church out of your surplus, but church being who we are and what we do. not compartmentalizing our faith, not saying this tithe belongs to the Lord, but everything belongs to Him. Everything. Everything I purchase, everything I build, everything I host, every word I say is for the purpose of the glory of God and the furtherance, if that's a word, of His kingdom. And I think that's the beautiful lesson of this text. And again, it would be bold of me to try to preach all of Luke 21 in the time allotted this morning. An excellent text for disciples to sit around and to talk about, because the whole chapter fits together. But the end of chapter 21, Jesus directly says, don't be burdened by things that distract you from kingdom work. And that's what the whole chapter's about. Refuse to be burdened by the things that distract you from the work of the kingdom. And what Jesus is experiencing, back where I'm about to read, at the beginning of Luke 21 again, what Jesus is experiencing are those who have become distracted, and therefore they're not pursuing the greatest, the better, the kingdom work that is more, because they've become distracted. I don't want to be this. I don't want us to be this. And what was that distraction? Very simply, that distraction was the outward display of religion. Again, recall, this is what Jesus is talking about. You scribes, you display your righteousness. You put on your nice clothes. You wear your long robes, right? You want the formal banquets and the festivals, and you want the greetings in the marketplace. And so Jesus keeps doing what He always does. And I love Him, and He's a good leader. He's a good Savior. He's good to follow. Jesus keeps doing what He always does, and He was doing it powerfully this week in Jerusalem. He is flipping the script. He is uncomfortably critical of corrupted religious norms. He is assertive. He is outspoken. He is antagonistic. We don't often think of Jesus as being antagonistic. Don't mishear me. He was not unkind, but He was antagonistic. When they told His disciples to stop praising Him, He said, if they are silent, the rocks will cry. I don't have the liberty to interpret that, but I do study the Bible a lot, and I think a lot about the culture of the text and how Jesus was. If my disciples are silent, the rocks will cry. Seems to me like He's kind of saying, hey guys, the rocks have sense enough to praise me. They know who the Creator is. What? We keep going. He goes from that to the temple, and He flips their tables over. What? He stands in the gate of the temple, and He says, I am the temple. I am the new way to God. They ask Him questions, and He responds with questions. How many of you like it when somebody does that? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I see some elbows there, right? You ask someone a question, and they respond with a question? And then He makes up stories that I'm trying to not use the same word. Indict. That's been a word of mine for a while. He makes up stories that indict them. Do you see why they get Him killed? Like, this makes sense. This is what He's doing. He rejected their flattery, wouldn't take it, would not accept their flattery, saw right through it, and then He exposed their heart. This is what Jesus is doing. And then the story that we're in, He honors the lowest of society. He lifts up the lowest. This is our Savior. I was talking about this morning with the guys at the fire hall, and I recalled C.S. Lewis. I know I talk about him a lot, but C.S. Lewis once said, Christianity is not a boy's faith. You know what he meant by that? Like, I think I know what he meant. Like, this is a faith for for men, like for real followers of Jesus. This isn't a shallow faith. Again, he said that years ago. This isn't a boy's faith. This is what Jesus is doing. Again, no wonder they killed him. And then what happens next is so like what I do. Is this on? What happens next is so like me. This is what happens. I'm just talking about me. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about me. I get challenged by Scripture, by some of you, whoever. The Lord, the Spirit of God challenges me, however He does it. And then I want to immediately try to justify me. You know what? You can join me in that if you'd like. You don't have to. I will confess. I get challenged, and then I try to justify me. This is exactly what happens here. Let me show it to you. Look at verse 3. Truly I say to you, this poor widow put more than all of them. For they all put out of their surplus into the offering, but she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on. And where does their mind go? Do you see this? Verse 5. And while some of them were talking about the temple, that it was adorned with beautiful stones and votive gifts, that word just means donations or memorial gifts, he said, as for these things which you are looking at, the days will come in which there will not be left one stone upon another which will not be torn down. So this is what I imagine is taking place. Jesus is being lovingly critical. I want to learn how to do that better. He is criticizing in love. Remember, he wept over this stuff. Remember? Luke 19, somewhere, he sees the city, he recognizes its corruption, and he weeps. And he says, if they only knew the day of their visitation. And he's weeping because he knows that their system and this temple is one day going to be obliterated. It's going to be destroyed. They're not going to be able to put their hope in it anymore. And that's devastating for them. And so he's not being critical without love. But this is what I think's going on. Okay? They don't like what he's saying. Their ears aren't being tickled. And so when he starts to be critical of them, they start to justify themselves. They start to think, look, Jesus, you're being critical of rich folks giving out of their surplus, but think about that. Like, look at the building. Consider what has paid for this. Consider what has put these beautiful stones and votive memorial gifts. Consider all of this. So it's like they're thinking, can't you see what you criticize as corrupt has at least done this, right? Has at least put this beautiful structure together. What you criticize as corrupt, surely it can't be all that bad. Again, it's like they're saying, Jesus, you've been critical of the wealthy's gift and idealistic of the widows. But like, for real now, come on, man. Do you really think those 2 pennies afforded this? The temple has been supported by generations of big contributions and donations. Careful what you're stepping on, Jesus. And then are you following me here? The same thing happens in Mark 12. I'm not making this up. I plead with you guys, good students, better students of God's Word, look at context and we look at stories, and we certainly key in on what follows them in every gospel. Okay, the same thing happens before the widow's mite and after in the other gospel accounts. This is what's going on here. I'm convinced of it. Look, Jesus, careful where you're treading, big guy. Like, the money put this together. And so what does Jesus say? Are you following? This is so cool. There's nothing else like this. Jesus says, as for these things which you are looking at, again, through a heart that weeps at their misplaced hope. As for these things that you're looking at, the days will come in which there will not be left one stone upon another which will not be torn down. I love him. I don't know how to do it like he did. I'm just glad that he did it. And I'm glad that we can just read how he did it. This Savior, this Jesus, would not entertain any sympathy for corruption. He wouldn't entertain any sympathy for corruption. It did not matter how pretty the building was. Actually, it did matter. The only reason that it really mattered was because the self-righteous pride that had glazed that building in gold was the same pride that was robbing the widows. And that's why it mattered. Money was poured into the temple treasury while those in need were dying and suffering in faith, in hope of the Lord. And there's so much to conclude with this. Again, there's an incredible amount for us to talk about with this. But I can't, because I need us to do this together. Like, I need us to think about this together. And so I pray that you see what he's doing here, and I pray that you share this conviction. I pray that you feel something here. I told Kelly, I said, I'm afraid that this changes everything. Like, this changes everything. Not doing church out of surplus. And then realizing that Jesus doesn't need our surplus. How about that? He doesn't need it, but he demands our all. Let me say that again. He doesn't need our surplus. In fact, giving to the church just out of surplus indicates that we can compartmentalize our faith. No. He demands that all of it goes to him. Our life goes to him. That's what he demands. And so I circle back. Again, we circle back. Is it possible? Just entertain this with me. Is it possible that we've been distracted into thinking that this is church? Have we poured our treasuries, both personal treasuries and congregational treasuries? Have we poured so much of that into what we do here? And is there more? Do we think that church is a nice building, sweet lady, with comfy pews and high ceilings? Just like winning every game and having fun? And by putting so much into that, have I missed better opportunities? Opportunities to struggle and to grow and to persevere with the hurting, with my life. So if you read the rest of the chapter as we draw to a close, Jesus is pleading that their hope is not in that nice structure. He's pleading that. He predicts accurately. This is where the text connects, okay? So he's pleading that their hope is not in that nice structure because he's predicting what's going to happen. The Romans are going to come in and tear this down. It's going to be gone. And you're not going to have this nice blocks and votive gifts to point to and justify yourself anymore. It's really all going to be out your patience and your hope in Jesus. That's the whole rest of the chapter in a nutshell. You know? Take care of how you wait. The heaven and earth will pass away. That's where we find that language. But my words will remain forever. That's what Jesus says. Trust in him. You're going to get drugged before the courts. Your brothers and your fathers and your family will hate you. Your friends will hate you. But trust that I'll be with you. That's the rest of the chapter. And do not, Paul, again, back to Timothy, he says, don't be burdened by things that are misplaced and don't matter, and therefore neglect the things that really do. That's the lesson of the chapter. That's the rest of the chapter. And of course, Jesus accurately predicted that. It happened. That temple was utterly obliterated. And this is how he ends the chapter. I'll come back to it a little bit in the weeks ahead, but not much, because it's a tough one to do up here, I think, for me. But this is how he ends this beautiful chapter with a prayer that I think fits so well right here. So be on guard. This is verse 34. Don't let your heart be weighted down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of life, and so that on you suddenly like a trap. I think he's referring to Jerusalem's destruction just the same as that refers to his coming, his second return. Christians, be ready. Don't be weighted down with the worries of this life, for it will come upon all those who dwell on the face of the earth. Again, better application for the second coming of our Savior. But keep on the alert at all times. Again, don't put your hope in stuff that crumbles. This is a message that I probably didn't preach well enough or translate well enough during a time that we weren't meeting here. But church, I was trying. Forgive me, God, if I failed and I was arrogant, but I was trying to help us see that our faith isn't in this place. Our faith is in the church. And pandemics don't shut that down. Amen. They don't. Keep on the alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are about to take place and stand before the Son of Man. Again, I texted myself this week. It's weird that I do that, but sometimes I don't need to forget stuff. And I got this phone that'll do stuff like that now. And so I texted myself, Stephen, Jesus doesn't need your surplus. Wow. Stephen, Jesus doesn't need your extra. Don't justify yourself one bit by giving the Lord your extra. He doesn't need it. Stephen, Jesus demands your all. He demands your all. He doesn't need your surplus. He demands your all. I'm going to close with something very, very personal. This hits home for us. We got a new sign out front. And I know any changes like that can be tough. I haven't heard anything negative about that. Thank you. It's been all positive. It's a great sign. It lights up at night. It's great. Letters stay on it. That's the thing. If you missed that old sign, those of you that missed it, did you ever put letters on it? Okay. Well, come talk to me about it. So we got a new sign. And there's a lot of love for that old sign. And I loved it too. And a man that I loved, that was a friend of mine, loved that lighthouse. And years ago, when we initiated conversation about changing out that sign, Ben Haynes said, keep that lighthouse. Keep that lighthouse. Well, the lighthouse isn't on the sign anymore. And he'd be okay with that. I'm sure he would. But I wanted to honor him, and some others wanted to honor him who I had shared that with. And so we cut the lighthouse out of the sign. And Brenton framed it, and we presented it at Taylor. Some of y'all saw that. And at the bottom of that, there's this beautiful plaque that Brenton engraved, and it says, Ben Henry Haynes, keep the lighthouse. Isn't that cool? Will you give me an amen for that? That's cool. You know what? And I don't know where that'll hang, but wherever it hangs, it'll be special and wonderful, and that's cool. And we love each other. And even in our differences and our frustrations sometimes, we're family. We call ourselves a union. That's pretty cool. I think it's really cool, actually. But here's the thing. You know as well as I know that as cool as that is, and as wonderful as that is, and as much as that honors a man who loved us and who we love, is it more important that we keep a sign with a lighthouse, or is it more important that we be a lighthouse? Right? Do you see what I'm saying? What's more important? A memorial gift that we hang on the wall? That's good. That's great. I love it. But what's more important? That we keep a picture, or that we be a lighthouse? Like you prayed, Philip. That we be a city on a hill, a light that can't be hidden. What's more important? I'm telling you, this is the lesson of the text. It is so easy for us. Don't get mad at hearing this. Just take warning. Be challenged. It is so easy for us to get consumed with this and to miss something that's way better, that's way greater. And that's what I want for us here at Old Union. And I think that's what a lot of us here want too. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But we only have the most powerful helper in the universe. Amen? Like, that's cool, right? Right? Thank you for enjoying this with me. And thank you for responding to Jesus in any way that you need to. And if you need to do that publicly now, I would love to celebrate that with you, assist you in any way that I can, that we can this morning as a family of faith who's growing together. We would love to be a part of that, okay? So the invitation is yours. Ethan's going to come up and lead us in song.